And the Indiana Fever have pulled off the upset, the 6th seed, beating Vegas 89-73 to take game 1.
Everyone said the Indiana Fever had absolutely no chance. ESPN analysts didn't just predict a loss, they practically wrote the eulogy. The odds makers laughed them out of the building, and even the two-time defending champion Las Vegas Aces were not just expecting a sweep, they were preparing for a coronation. But then, right in the middle of their own home court celebration, on the very night Aja Wilson was being crowned MVP, the Indiana Fever didn't just win, they hijacked the entire evening and shocked the world by stealing Game 1. How did a battered, depleted team missing 6 key players manage to flip the entire series script with one defiant win? And what did Caitlin Clark from the sidelines say to her teammates post-game that is now turning heads all across the league? You need to stick around because this wasn't just an upset, this was a statement. If you're fired up for the Fever after that performance, drop a fired up in the comments and let us know how proud you are of this team. So what happens when a team limps into the playoffs with 6 players out, completely written off by every single analyst, with the two-time defending champion juggernaut lying in wait? You get the Indiana Fever's ultimate test of belief, a night that was supposed to be a coronation for someone else, and yet a night they somehow hijacked and transformed into their own defining moment.
Particular matchup, Aces Fever Game 1. We're not deciding the whole series right now, just Game 1.
Should we do it together?
I think we should do it together because my spidey sense is telling me they might be the same. 3, 2, 1.
Aces.
They're not going to lose after she just won MVP.
Yeah, period.
There's
From
no
the very
way.
beginning, this
No way.
entire series was framed as a complete and utter mismatch. ESPN panels dismissed it as being short and predictable. The sportsbooks in Vegas had odds so comically lopsided that it was actually easier to bet on how many points the Aces would win by than it was to bet on whether Indiana could win the game at all. Even the language being used in the pregame coverage was revealing, with headlines talking about survival for the Fever, not victory. The Aces were universally expected to roll right over them on their inevitable march to another WNBA Finals, and the subtext in all of this was crystal clear. If Indiana could simply manage to avoid a complete and total humiliation, that alone would be counted as a success.
Indiana Fever had no business winning a playoff series this year, had no business advancing to the semifinals for the first time in a decade, and yet here they are, eliminating the Atlanta Dream in Atlanta without Caitlin Clark, without Sophie Cunningham, without Sid Colson, without Erin McDonald, without Chloe Bibby. The hospital squad is on the bench, and yet the Indiana Fever are into the semifinals of the WNBA playoff.
And then there was the devastating, almost comical injury list. Caitlin Clark, sidelined. Sophie Cunningham, out. Sydney Colson, Chloe Bibby, Ari McDonald, Damaris Dantas. 6 key names just gone. The Indiana Fever didn't look like a playoff squad. They looked like a MASH unit, a team literally being held together by medical tape and sheer willpower. The narrative was no longer about them simply being underdogs. They were now being patronizingly referred to as being lucky to even be standing there, as if their season had, for all intents and purposes, already expired.
And then the coaching of Stephanie White. She is working with a 9-woman rotation, and 5 of those players did not even touch the court the last time the Fever played the Dream during the regular season, and 3 of those players weren't even on the team. I cannot say it enough. The Indiana Fever should not be here. They continue to be here. They battle. They're resilient. It's wildly impressive. Caitlin Clark wore the black Air Force Ones again. They had one of those forces lifted in the air like a beacon of hope, and now they'll face the Aces.
Now picture the pre-game scene inside that Las Vegas arena. Championship banners were hanging high from the rafters. The crowd was completely primed for a celebration, a coronation, and then came the centerpiece of the entire evening, Aja Wilson being honored with her MVP trophy at center court. This announcement wasn't just about recognizing her individual brilliance, it was the perfect symbolic representation of the story that everyone in the building expected to unfold. Las Vegas, the undisputed powerhouse. Indiana, the irrelevant background act. The Indiana Fever's players weren't just being overlooked. In their own semifinal debut, they were being treated as if they were completely invisible.
You actually just referenced it twice. It is Indiana. Dropped 2 of the 3 games to them this year, but you haven't seen them since late July. What excites you about that matchup?
Bet they haven't seen the real aces yet. They caught us when we were at a bit in turmoil. Not only that, they whooped us one of those stretches. So, you know what? We'll buckle in, hone in where we can, and take care of business.
And yet, sports have a funny, beautiful way of violently flipping the script precisely when expectations are at their most rigid. Just think back to some of the greatest underdog runs in history, the teams that were completely written off before a single ball was even tipped, the squads that supposedly weren't even supposed to be on the same floor as their opponents. You could feel those same historical parallels brewing. This wasn't just the mundane start of another playoff series. For Indiana, Game 1 represented a chance to defiantly claim a seat at the table and announce to the entire world that they were here to fight. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the entire pre-written narrative had completely cracked. The brilliant, glaring spotlight that had been fixed on A'ja Wilson's MVP moment suddenly dimmed because the Indiana Fever had stolen it right out from under her. They walked out of Las Vegas with a stunning 89-73 win, securing their first semifinal victory in almost a full decade, and leaving the entire basketball world staring on in stunned disbelief. But the real shock didn't just come from the team as a whole. It came from one specific player who completely turned the night into her own personal, history-making stage.
Respect everyone, fear no one. Woo! Sounds in the chat! Oh! Dumb. That's one. That's big time. That's big time.
While all eyes in the arena were completely locked on A'ja Wilson as she raised her MVP trophy, absolutely nobody expected Kelsey Mitchell to come in and completely single-handedly flip the entire story. By all accounts, it was supposed to be Wilson's night. It was supposed to be about the defending champions comfortably taking care of business on their home court. The entire narrative had already been written long before the ball even went up. But Kelsey Mitchell simply and defiantly refused to let the Indiana Fever become a footnote in someone else's celebration. She systematically turned the semifinal opener into her own personal masterpiece, and by the time it was all over, the conversation all across the league had already seismically shifted.
First semifinal appearance, just what's your emotional state right now?
Normal, I think. It's practice. Trying to prepare like anybody else would, like any other day. But keep the main thing. That's all you can do.
Kelsey Mitchell has always been widely respected as an elite scorer, but she is far too often mentioned as a mere afterthought, overshadowed by the bigger, more heavily marketed names in the WNBA. Coming into this pivotal series, all of the talk was about whether A'ja Wilson could continue her MVP-level dominance, if the dynamic duo of Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray could completely overwhelm the Fever, or if the undermanned Indiana squad could even manage to stay on the same floor with them. Very few people were talking about Kelsey Mitchell as the one player who could potentially redefine the entire matchup. And yet, just as she has done for much of her entire career, she answered all of that doubt in the best way possible by letting her game speak with a volume that completely drowned out the low expectations surrounding her.
Tell your younger self.
Yeah.
How would you explain to her to make sure that you give yourself grace and give you the flowers that you so willingly deserve?
Ooh, I think the best thing I could have done was, I had a list. I had a long list. I wrote down a list of all the times I could have quit, been a pro, playing with the Indiana Fever. I wrote down all the people that wrote me off. I wrote it down on a list. I wrote down all the coaches that didn't want me around. I wrote down all the media outlet that didn't want to talk to me. I think that within itself is like, you gotta tell your younger self not to give up on you. Because it's been a lot of times I could have given up when I know a lot of people that talk to me now wasn't talking to me, and I know what it was like when they wasn't. So that part is big for me.
Kelsey Mitchell did not just score, she scored in every conceivable way you can imagine. She consistently hit difficult mid-range pull-ups when defenders desperately fought their way through screens. She drilled deep dagger-like threes whenever the Aces defense was even a split second late on a rotation. And she was perfect from the free throw line, finishing the night a flawless 6 for 6. From inside, from outside, and from everywhere in between, she looked absolutely and completely untouchable. When you looked at the final box score, she had piled up a staggering 34 points on an incredibly efficient 12 for 23 shooting from the field, a blistering 4 for 6 from beyond the arc, and that perfect unblemished mark at the charity stripe. Her performance wasn't just efficient, it was utterly breathtakingly relentless.
That time, keeping the pivot foot alive and going strong side for Wilson.
Mitchell this time finds a lane to the basket. Inside to Turner. Nice look from Mitchell, which follows 5 Eastern time on ESPN. Mitchell. Lot of arc on that and a couple of bounces.
That 34-point offensive explosion wasn't just a big game, it was a legitimately historic performance. No Indiana Fever player had scored over 30 points in a playoff game since all the way back in 2012, and absolutely no one in the entire history of the WNBA had ever dropped that many points in their very first semifinal appearance. Kelsey Mitchell's stunning performance now sits comfortably alongside legends like Lauren Jackson and Cynthia Cooper, yet it goes one incredible step further because she actually broke their long-standing record. Just think about that for a moment. In her postseason debut at this elite level, on the road against the defending champions, and under the glaring spotlight of an MVP celebration, she went out and carved her own name into the WNBA record books.
He's done that. 5-point advantage for Indy. Trying to go inside. Terrific defense by Mitchell to deny Lloyd. It's Mitchell, guarded by Evans. Screen from Turner. Kelsey Mitchell knocks down another shot.
No one is accountable for Hall.
It's Mitchell. Come on.
And even those who were forced to watch from the sideline could feel the immense weight and significance of the moment. Caitlin Clark, sidelined by her injury, had a simple but incredibly powerful reaction to the performance, sending out just 2 words across all of her social media platforms: Kelsey unreal. There was no elaborate speech, no overthinking. It was a pure, unadulterated sign of respect from the sophomore phenom to the seasoned veteran who had just carried their entire team on her back when it mattered most. That simple gesture showed exactly how much Kelsey Mitchell means to this team, and how deeply her teammates recognize her invaluable contributions.
So who's going to step up, and how can the Aces find an edge?
Another good cut to the basket, this time by Turner.
The Las Vegas Aces are running out of time because the Indiana Fever making passes with... That's right.
Boston. Triple team, kicks it out. Kelsey Mitchell.
Even the famously stoic Aces head coach Becky Hammon, a woman who is never one to hand out compliments cheaply, was forced to admit in her post-game press conference that they simply had no answer for Kelsey Mitchell. That single candid acknowledgement from an opposing coach only served to underscore just how completely and utterly she had taken over every single possession that night. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a fluke. This was Kelsey Mitchell at her absolute undeniable best, proving once and for all that she belongs in every single conversation about the league's most dangerous and elite guards.
But you could start on the defensive end. I mean, clearly we had no answer for Mitchell. Couldn't even attempt to slow her down a little bit. I thought it was really poor, really poor.
The symbolism of the moment could not have possibly been any louder. On the very same floor where Aja Wilson was being officially crowned as the league's MVP, Kelsey Mitchell was busy staking her own, undeniable claim. It was as if she was silently declaring, "We've got a most valuable player over here too, and she is wearing Fever red, blue, and yellow." It was a career night, yes, but it was more than that. Her 34 points represented Indiana's collective defiance, their fierce and absolute refusal to accept a mere supporting role in a story that was supposed to be about someone else. And yet, the Fever didn't just win because of Kelsey Mitchell's offensive outburst. They found their entire identity through it. And that identity certainly didn't end with just one scorer. The real, thumping heartbeat of this monumental upset came from all across the roster, with a stifling defense, relentless hustle, and surprising depth all combining to frustrate the defending champions from every single angle. Everyone in the world expected Las Vegas to completely own the paint, to physically bully the Fever inside with their superior size, strength, and an MVP presence. But instead, Indiana made defense and tempo their primary weapons, completely flipping the game in the one area where almost nobody thought they could possibly win. What unfolded wasn't just simple resistance, it looked like a meticulously crafted blueprint for how to systematically break down the defending champions.
Watson Hull had that great steal to seal the win against Atlanta. A great start for Leah Boston.
Definitely the slasher.
Boston and Wilson. Two former South Carolina players. Asia can't find the bottom of the net.
5'11". Odyssey Sims and Kelsey Mitchell, 5'8".
Boston up, under, and in.
Really having her battle.
Asia.
At the very center of this defensive masterclass was Aliyah Boston, and her assignment for the night was one of the toughest you could possibly imagine. Guard Ajay Wilson. Wilson had just been officially named the league's MVP. She thrives in the post, she stretches defenses thin, and she attacks the rim with a relentless ferocity. Most players would shrink when given that impossible matchup. Aliyah Boston did not. From the very first possession, she was singularly focused on being disruptive, rather than foolishly trying to match Wilson shot for shot. Her strategic approach was brilliantly simple: make Ajay Wilson uncomfortable. If she could just push her off of her sweet spots, aggressively contest every single catch, and consistently force her to reset, Indiana could completely tilt this pivotal one-on-one battle in their favor.
Double juice effort than us. So that's got to change this second half.
Coach, you're shooting under 40 from the field, about 7.
Hit about it.
All right, thank you very much, Coach Hammond. And let's go over now to Angel Gray. For Asia. Spins, counters, doesn't get the bounce.
I am just so impressed.
Oh, Boston just faked Wilson out of her.
And it absolutely worked. Ajay Wilson still managed to produce 16 points and 13 rebounds, numbers that, on the surface, look perfectly fine, but the real story was in her rhythm, or more accurately, the complete lack thereof. She was forced to grind and battle for every single bucket, settling for shots that lacked her usual effortless flow, and often working late into the shot clock just to get a look. That constant physical irritation had a ripple effect, slowing down the entire Aces offense and chipping away at the confidence of a team that usually thrives when their MVP is dictating everything. Aliyah Boston didn't completely erase the MVP, but she made her look human, and that in and of itself is a monumental achievement.
Lexi Hull had that great steal to seal the win against Atlanta. A great start for Aliyah Boston.
Beyond Aliyah Boston's incredible interior defense, the Indiana Fever desperately needed their wings to step up. Lexi Hull drew the unenviable assignment of guarding Jackie Young, who is widely considered one of the toughest covers in the entire league. She relentlessly shadowed her on cuts. She fought her way through a maze of brutal screens, and she absolutely refused to bite on any of Young's deceptive fakes. As a result, Young never found the open space she usually relies on to operate, and by the end of the game, her overall impact felt noticeably muted. And on top of that stellar defensive performance, Hull added even more value by knocking down clutch three-pointers whenever Indiana needed them most, proving that her effort wasn't just about stopping someone else, but also about inspiring her own team's offense.
First 5 minutes. One shot. Rebound. Stay high, stay high, stay high. We're good, we're good, we're good. Good job, Kels. Keep playing great defense. Yeah. Stay on the ground. Yeah. Switch, switch, switch.
Few minutes to go in the quarter. Hull left open for three, and she hits it. Much needed. Odyssey. Thought about it, but boy, her shooting's on point, so is her.
The Indiana Fever also unleashed Odyssey Sims, who attacked with a ferocious fire on every single possession. She was completely unafraid to take the ball straight at the heart of the Las Vegas defense, splitting lanes and consistently forcing the Aces into costly foul trouble. Her relentless, aggressive drives completely changed the tempo of the game. Instead of Indiana being forced to play a slow and cautious half-court set, the pace of the game sped up dramatically. Las Vegas, the team that is usually dictating the tempo, suddenly looked like the one that was scrambling just to keep up. Sims had them reacting instead of controlling, and that critical shift in momentum directly fed into the Fever's defense, allowing them to get set and completely locked in, possession after possession.
Good anticipation there by Brianna Turner. She's been on a couple WNBA all defensive teams, and she has really been key for them on that end of the floor in these playoffs.
Sims, yet again.
That's a tough matchup.
Which follows 5 Eastern time on ESPN. Mitchell. Lot of arc on that and a couple in the regular season in Asia. In the entire league. And Sims, they gave her just that space and she took it.
Natasha Howard, meanwhile, was a picture of steady veteran excellence all night long, quietly and efficiently recording another crucial double-double for her team. She was relentlessly active on the glass, consistently boxing out to create vital second-chance opportunities on offense, and then expertly protecting the lane on the other end of the floor.
Uses her strength, her athleticism. There were 3 or 4 Seattle players right there, but Jackie Young made the game winner.
Fade away from Natasha Howard. Going to the ball on the block. Now the shot clock is winding down. Young doing a good job keeping Kelsey Mitchell away from the basket, but the Fever score. Great. Driving, taking the shot. Stopped by
Brianna Turner didn't necessarily fill up the box score, but her defensive presence was absolutely unmistakable. She consistently altered shots with her incredible length. She walled up drivers attempting to get to the rim, and she made the paint a contested territory that the Aces simply could not just own. When you look at the final numbers, Indiana had actually outscored Las Vegas 50-38 in the paint, completely flipping what had been perceived as their greatest disadvantage into one of their most significant strengths. When the game finally ended, even the Aces' own coach, Becky Hammon, was forced to admit what everyone in the building could already see. Indiana had definitively won the categories that mattered most: pace, defense, and pure raw urgency. That single acknowledgement from the opposing coach told the entire story. This was not a case of luck, nor was it a one-off hot shooting night. This was a team systematically establishing how they could compete, how they could frustrate, and most importantly, how they could win again. Now the critical question becomes whether the Fever can use that exact same defensive roadmap in Game 2 and prevent the champion Aces from adjusting to it. One game is down, but here is the tough, sobering reality. In a best-of-5 series, history shows that 28% of the teams who dropped Game 1 still managed to come back and win the entire series. The Aces know this, their fans know this, and you can be sure they are preparing for Game 2 as if it is a matter of life or death. For Indiana, these next 40 minutes will be the most important of their entire season so far. If they win again, they will go home up 2-0 with a golden opportunity to close out the series in front of their own roaring crowd. But if they lose, the entire series resets, and all of that hard-won precious momentum will be suddenly completely gone.
How do you feel about the performance, the urgency, and the response you had when they made a couple runs late?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, our group has seen it all. We wanted to come in and be the aggressor right away to make sure that we were dictating on the defensive end, and we were dictating from a pace standpoint. They're champions for a reason. We knew that they were going to make runs. They made a big one in the third, and we responded with a big one. I'm proud of our team. It's one game. It's a long series, so we got to keep the main thing. But to come in here and to be able to steal this one was big for us.
Championship caliber teams respond to losses on an entirely different psychological plane. The Las Vegas Aces have been in this exact position before. They have faced early, jarring setbacks in past playoff runs, only to immediately bounce right back by making lightning-fast surgical adjustments. That is their distinct championship-level advantage. They know how to learn in a matter of hours what can take other, less experienced teams entire weeks to figure out. You can be absolutely certain that they will not come out flat again. They will come out swinging. A'ja Wilson, in particular, will be hunting for a personal MVP-level redemption. She does not like being held down, and you can bet that Las Vegas will make it their #1 priority to put her in strong, aggressive scoring positions right from the opening tip. Jackie Young, who visibly struggled against Lexi Hull's smothering defense in Game 1, will also be looking to get herself loose on a series of cuts, screens, and an early offense before the Fever defense has a chance to get set. And most importantly, Becky Hammon has now seen precisely what worked for Indiana. That means her team will be walking into Game 2 with a completely different and likely far more effective game plan. So the Indiana Fever now have to answer one critical question: can they handle being the team that is in control? This is completely new ground for them. Winning in the scrappy underdog role is one story. Following that up with another dominant win when your opponent is throwing absolutely everything they have at you, that is an infinitely harder test. Can Kelsey Mitchell possibly find that same ethereal shooting rhythm when the defense is coming at her with aggressive traps and double teams? Can Aaliyah Boston manage to keep the MVP A'ja Wilson uncomfortable for a second straight game, or does Wilson inevitably break free? These are not small, insignificant challenges.
You know, we've got to keep the main thing, and that is us playing to a standard of basketball that we want to have as an Indiana Fever organization and franchise. You know, we've got to keep our layers, you know, the outside, the people in our building and the people in our locker room. And the thing I'm just so proud of with this group is it doesn't matter who's on the floor. It doesn't matter who's on our roster. They give each other the freedom to be themselves. They empower one another to be themselves and to be the best version of themselves. And every time we've had a change, every time we've brought someone in, every time we've had rotational changes, they're for each other. They live the we over the me. And when you have that, it just gives you opportunities to do really special things.
And this is precisely where the entire idea of a true championship moment comes into play. When you are tested not after a failure, but immediately after a monumental success, do you fold under the new weight of expectation, or do you rise up and do it all over again? If the Indiana Fever can somehow find a way to grab Game 2 on the road, they won't just be holding on to momentum, they will be fundamentally transforming themselves from simple upset artists into legitimate bona fide contenders for the WNBA Finals. This wasn't just another playoff win. This was the Indiana Fever collectively reclaiming their belief and proving to the entire world that "we over me" isn't just a catchy slogan, it is their core, unshakable identity on the league's biggest and brightest stage. One single fearless night, after a full decade of waiting, showed everyone exactly what this group is capable of becoming. As head coach Stephanie White wisely reminded everyone, we take it one day at a time. We can't look too far in front of us, because that's when you start to lose your focus. Game 2 now stands as more than just the next challenge on the schedule. It is the single pivotal moment where one stunning upset has the potential to grow into an improbable history-making finals run. Can the Indiana Fever keep on making history? If you're fired up for the Fever, drop a fired up in the comments and let us know how proud you are of this incredible team. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.